Today we're going to start a new project. This project is a little different than what you guys are used to seeing in that it is not EFI and the engine is rather old. This is my dad's 1954 Studebaker. He built the car originally for land speed racing, and it has set around 18 land speed records along the East Coast, both in Loring, Maine and in Maxton, North Carolina. The fastest that the car has been is 179 miles per hour, but what you're going to see today is the beginning of switching the car over to a drag car. So let's get started. Certainly is bringing back a lot of memories. When we first put this thing together, or got the car, allegedly this had been a drag car from back in the 50s, and there was some numbering on the roof that we could never decipher to identify what the car might be, but we know that it had been in a junkyard before it got rescued and taken to a body shop. But some of the things that were telltale from back when we first got it were there was actually a set of drag links. This cobbled up weld here that's on both sides is where the original drag link bars had been tied into the frame, and we modified all this when we lowered the car and put these monoleafs in. They're split monoleafs, but it was neat to see the original bars that were in there that were used in the 50s and 60s. A lot of things changed as we went through working on the car. We ended up with this end case and this mid-60s housing. You can tell by the plug in the back here. That's only 2 years that was used. But the effort to lower the car, we put these blocks in and had to reconfigure these shock mounts up higher and in further. They were originally down here, and ended up getting help from Joe Timney on some advice on the shocks. We were spinning the tires real bad at Maxton on the top end, and when we talked about what was happening, I described it, and Joe had made the recommendation to go to basically this 60/40 shock, and we immediately picked up 2 miles an hour just by changing the shock. But some of the things that I had planned on, the tank was originally full width, and I ended up taking the top of it out and cut it down the middle and moved it over because I wanted to put a big single exhaust out of it. Up here, we put this torque arm in. The original configuration, we had traction bars, and we went 152 miles an hour with that, and then changed it up to get the car down lower, and when we did, the traction bars were just way too far down under the rim's edge, so the concern was if I had a flat, it would go right onto the metal. So I put this single torque arm into the center, and to get it up high enough, I actually put bracing inside the car, and then you put the bolt in up on the top side here. But we configured it so that we could adjust the pinion angle and get it to run without any vibration. That worked good. And these cars, the way that they're built, and with the seat, I actually had to put some extra room down here, seat belt anchors, and the seat sits in here, and some of the seat bracing is here because there's tubing all underneath the driver's seat so that you're protected in every direction. We had put a Camaro cross member in, ran a Muncie transmission. Here's where the shifter hole is. We had a transmission blow apart on us at 176 mile an hour pass, and the boys ended up tearing this thing apart. They were just kids at the time, and Cameron hopped in here and he disassembled that, and the boys just went to work, and I was pulled away from helping them out for a little while, talking to one of the writers for Hot Rod Magazine, and it was really neat because he was amazed at how polite the boys were, because they had a question. They came over and they wanted to ask me a question, and they just patiently waited until I paused, and I asked them, "Excuse me for a second." I turned to look at the boys, and I answered that question, and I turned back and I started talking to the writer, and he was like, "Your boys are just so polite." I'm very proud of my boys. But original tie downs, this stuff will all go. Things that we did to lower the car, we brought offset the A-arms so that the ball joint's up higher.
Yeah, it's an S10 ball joint, isn't it?
No, it's a Crown Vic. It came out of a 93 Crown Vic, I think is what it was. And then we originally had regular coil springs in this thing that I had lowered, but later changed to this adjustable coil over so that I could even get more reduction on how high the front end sat. All this was reinforced so that it could take the push from the high wind load pushing on the front at high speeds. And then we made these air ducts come up through here, and this was used to go directly to the radiator to cool the radiator down, and the air for the engine came through the grill, and there's all kinds of ductwork that we built into the front end of the car so that when the hood was shut, the hood acted as the top of the air duct, and we made a pass, and for some reason the speed was off, and here what we turned out is one of the gaskets had pushed out when we closed the hood, and it made almost a 2 mile an hour difference just in having that air duct sealed up. And that was a real neat A-to-A comparison. This hole right here is actually a duct that runs from the front of the car up through this tube, and then it goes all the way back here to the cabin. And that's required so that you can blow or push air into the chassis, and it ultimately pressurizes the cabin. That way, if something happens where you have fire in the engine bay or an oil leak, with the air going into the air cabin, it pushes everything out instead of letting things come into the cabin. And on the opposite end, you have to have an exhaust duct. So there's a similar tubing that runs through the back of the car, goes into the back of the cabin, so you have this exhaust coming out of this side. And when you look at some of the land speed cars that are made, you'll see these little pieces of tubing in it. It's all part of the airflow management and ventilation and complying with the rules for the different sanctioning bodies. This is all part of the parachute mount. I anchored it in. I had always thought I would get this car up over 200, and I knew I was going to need a pretty good parachute with the weight that it was going to carry, but now we're going in the opposite direction. We're going to take this car and take the weight out of it instead of put the weight in it. And, you know, instead of having some behemoth 3,700, 4,000 pound land speed missile, we're going to try and turn this into a bracket car that is got some old school vibes to it. We're real excited about getting started on that. Last time we drove the car was July 31st, 2010, and we set a record at 177 miles an hour on that very last run. We set 4 records that day. They were all in the upper 170s, but the last time I drove this car, July 31st, 2010, was at 177 miles an hour. And we pushed it in the trailer, brought it home, and pushed it in the garage, and it's been there ever since. We pulled the engine out, put it into our Henry J, and used it on drag week in 2011, and raced the Henry J for a couple of years. The transmission I ended up selling to a buddy in Altoona, and a lot of great memories. 731, the last time I drove it, actually it was 8/1, 2010. I filled up at Loring Timing Association before we made our record runs, so that hasn't been opened. Oh boy, that's ugly.
Today's September 4th.
I was thinking of Cameron's birthday, sorry.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Calvin knows how he rates.
You don't even remember me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, worthless son number 2.
God. Yeah, your son
I'm just
number 2.
number 2.
You're number 2. All right, you hop in.
For
There you
too many. No. Number 2.
Power on.
Right?
Bad connection.
Make sure it's in neutral.
Where's the jump box? Put it right on the battery.
Hose. Why are you beeping? What do you want from me? Okay. Ready?
You need
That's
more
good.
gas.
Look at that. Beautiful. Holy cow.
Good job.
A little bit, I would have been probably 9
Next week, 10 years ago.
Probably 9 years, because you rated it a little bit after.
Since it was last run, right?
Well, yeah, just look at the, yes, you are correct, Cal. So 9 years ago.
You raced it at South Mountain because my very first pass
Was against this engine.
Yeah, was against this. Yeah.
Okay, we gotta get this thing started quickly.
Yeah, let me out.
Arnold.
There's your fireworks.
Smoke!
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Big thanks to John and Jonathan Rose, and also John Lemkeld for helping us out today to get the car running. My dad is very excited to get this thing on the track, so what you're going to see in the future is cleaning the car up and trying to make it lighter so that we can take the thing drag racing. He wants to bracket race the car in foot brake, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.